All right. I see my man is in the background. He is a fan favorite and a favorite of mine. We are joined with Dennis Fritz. If I can pull the calendar up, there we are. Dennis Fritz, he's retired Commander, Chief Master Sergeant. By the way, I love saying Master Sergeant for some reason. I think it's because of Halo. I love it. Every time I say it, it does good things to me. Dennis Fritz is retired Commander, Chief Master Sergeant of the United States Air Force. He's currently Director of the Eisenhower. You are not currently director of it, correct?
Right. Yeah. I stepped down June the 1st to give me more time to do things that we're doing right now. So I'm still a senior fellow at the Eisenhower Media Network and former director.
With the mission to promote peace and diplomacy over war. And I want to put this part because I want to give you a pedigree just so they know a bit of your background. While on active duty, he served as the principal senior advisor to 4-star commander in the Pacific Air Forces and Air Force Space Command. He has held additional duty as senior enlisted advisor to commander of North American Aerospace Defense Command, basically NORAD. He's authored the book Deadly Betrayal, The Truth About Why the United States Invaded Iraq. You are the man I want to talk to today. You have no idea.
Well,
you have no idea.
I hope I don't let you down.
Okay. No, you're not going to let me down. So I would like to point out that I continuously said that these negotiations were fake, that they weren't being serious about these negotiations. All of the reporting has come out, has shown that to be true, that Donald Trump, and the reason why I said it was he was continuously escalating his demands and what he wanted. And there was a context, whether it was Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, Syria, etc. Donald Trump has surrounded himself by neocons and Zionists. And with the genocide that was effectively taking place before our eyes, Israel was acting with a certain impunity that there was never a pushback, which means that they just felt they can escalate and escalate and escalate. And boy, did they escalate and get themselves into a whirl of shit, for lack of a better word for it. I am super curious about the U.S. and what it's going to do now. I really suspect that someone told Donald Trump, Israel can handle it. We don't even have to put our fingerprints on it. Now, Donald Trump is not the brightest man in the world, so he came out immediately destroying any notion of plausible deniability, if indeed it existed at all. But, it's clear as day now that Israel can't handle it. They don't have control of their airspace. I mean, their skies. Iran is hitting them with impunity. They seem to be able to pick their targets and hit wherever they want with a certain degree of precision. Yes, Iran is taking hits because it's a war, and in wars, your ability to take a punch and give a punch. But Israel is a country of 8 million people. Iran is a country of 80 million. It's 3 times the size of Iraq. One of these things will fall first. And politically, and for the most part, the way that Iran is effectively, seemingly decapitating these aspects of a functional society, meaning going after Haifa and destroying the ability to produce energy. Okay, that's a targeted shot. That's specific. They're doing that for a reason. Destroying the ability in the financial sector. Again, there's a reason for that. Going after Mossad, they are going after military targets with a systematic, brutal regard in a way that is honestly commendable. Give me your take on this, because the U.S. will get involved. I don't believe for a moment that Trump is going to set this up. Every signal in the world that is taking place in regards to the military assets that they're putting over, moving out people from various military bases, because Iran is going to hit those bases the moment that the U.S. attacks. What happens next is a fascinating question to me. If you're sitting in NORAD, if you're sitting in the military, and they come to your desk, Master Chief, or they say, Chief, we need a war plan. What does that look like from here?
Well, let me just comment on something you said earlier about the retaliation by Iran. I'm on record for over a year now saying that if Israel attacked Iran, remember this: Iran has ballistic missiles. Those ballistic missiles are very powerful. And more importantly, those ballistic missiles are accurate. And that just confirms everything that you're saying. I've been on record for over a year saying if Israel attacked Iran, Iran will retaliate.
Yeah.
And it's happening before our eyes. Now, Dennis Fritz, Chief Fritz, I tell folks, I can give you opinions, assumptions, and facts. Well, I'm giving you a fact Iran has proven it in the past. When we took out Soleimani, they attacked our forces in Iraq.
Right.
When Israel made their first attack, Iran went back and attacked again.
The
Now,
bottom
what
air
you must
base.
understand, Jamal, and your audience must understand, they still have a full arsenal of ballistic missiles. And in fact, opinion now, I think there are many out there that they have not used yet that are even more accurate. And so they're fighting back. Now, you mentioned something else again that what scares me. You know, if you see in my background, and you mentioned about the book Deadly Betrayal, the truth about why we invaded Iraq, I wrote that book because of what is happening right now. My goal, and I'm fearful that I'm going to fail, my goal was to keep us out of another war in the Middle East, in particular, Iran, because I knew it would be more devastating because of the missile arsenal that Iran has. And will the United States get involved? Opinion, yes, they will have no choice because of the fact is in an earlier presentation before you, I had mentioned there are forces that are controlling Trump, or there's forces that he can't control that's going to get him involved in this war. Now, I'm going to go back to something I stated earlier, and thank you. In fact, in a previous time that we talked, we keep saying, how much does Trump know? But Jamal, I'm going to stand by what I said. There's a lot that he doesn't know. I'm telling you. And those that get that book, I urge you to get that book because it'll tell you the playbook of the neocons and those forces that are around Trump. During the second war, against Iraq, President Bush was surrounded by the first team neocons, the original, the Paul Wolfridges of the world, the Doug Fifes of the world, the Richard Pearls of the world. He was surrounded by the first team, the starters. Now, Trump is surrounded by the second team, the neocon sympathizers, and they are working behind his back. Now, you saw the missed messages where the Secretary of State come out and say, that, hey, we didn't know anything. All of a sudden, things start going well. Trump come out, oh, yeah, we knew everything. The mixed messages. Yeah, I think his team knew what was going on. His team that are blindsiding him and undermining him. And so I do think you're correct when you're saying that, hey, we knew a lot more. Guarantee you there were forces within Trump's arena that was working with the Israelis. Likewise, during the Bush administration and the war against Iraq, there were people working directly. In my book, you hear me talk about Doug Feith, who was the number 3 guy at the Pentagon. He was working with Bibi Netanyahu. I think Bibi Netanyahu was the treasury guy then. He wasn't the prime minister, but he was working closely with him. And likewise, that's going on right now. So now, will the Americans get involved? Will there be a false flag whether or not Iran hit our troops or not? Somebody will hit our troops. Wink, wink, false flag. And it will draw us into this war. And then we have to remember, you mentioned something earlier about forces. We have forces in Jordan, Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, Oman, and let us not forget Iraq. And so I am fearful that we're going to be drawn into something that will probably be very devastating, and a lot of lives will be lost, to include a bunch of Americans.
Do they even need a false flag? I mean, I understand the point, like the Nimitz, for example, I keep saying those aircraft carriers are a 1990s power projection device. In the year 2025, when the Houthis can knock one of those things out of the water, they are not, those things are vulnerable. Do they need a false flag in this case? I mean, sure, the Nimitz can get hit. One of these other things could get hit. They may end up killing several thousand Americans, and they say, oh my God, Iran did this. But the fact of the matter is, we're already attacking Iran. We're using Israel to do it, but we're backing Israel to the hilt as they do it, filling it with weapons. I am not even of mind that we're not running some of these sorties that are attacking Iran. Meaning, I would not doubt if these were our airplanes flying in their airspace, attacking them, and they're pretending that they're Israel. So, go ahead. Give me answer.
I agree with you. I've been thinking it a lot. As I said, I can give you facts and pays and assumptions. My assumption is that, we are participating offensively. I really do believe that myself, that we're flying sorties. And yeah, we may not need a false flag. If one of those fighters is hit, American fighter is hit, then we're going to have to retaliate. But if you notice,
But how can we retaliate? See, this is the madness to me.
well,
Right?
I may have used the wrong word, retaliate, because of the fact is Iran really retaliated against them. So I may have used the wrong word. Yeah, retaliate. Because
Like, how is Iran wrong?
Let's get one thing out of the way first of all.
Please.
We started this war. We started it, and it's been a plan all the way back for decades. Iran is just the last piece of the colonial control of the Middle East. Israel has been looking for the reason and the opportunity to attack Iran for decades and to draw us in. Yes, we're in it because of these forces that I keep telling you about that Trump cannot even control, because those forces are controlling the people around him. And so it's all coming to fruition. And now that's why I say I have failed, because my goal was to try to keep us out of this. Now, assumptions. I don't know what's going to happen. None of us know what's going to happen. But I'm telling you what could happen. And like I said, Iran, they've proven it. That's a fact. They will fight back. This unconditional surrender, that will never happen. And by the way, folks keep talking about, oh, well, they damage, their proxies. Hezbollah is waiting. They still have a lot of weapons. And let me just mention this, too. When we talk about drawing the U.S. in, those countries I just mentioned where we have forces, they're right next door to Iran. Iran is not going to have to use ballistic missiles. They have rockets. They have smaller versions that have a quick response time to those countries because they're right there. And we will not be able to respond fast enough. And Iran have a bunch of them. And so I'm telling you, this could really explode. And I'm really, worried.
Yes. Agreed. Iran has been restrained. They've done everything they could to avoid this war. They seem to be using a kind of escalation ladder as opposed to, see, as an American, it's weird for me because I look at it through an American lens. Mm-hmm. And through an American lens, I would have sunk those carriers already.
Well,
I would have assumed.
Jamal, I don't know if it's that easy. Now, yeah, they could probably, and I'm gonna use this word loosely, I mean accidentally, take one of the carriers down, but it will be an act. It's hard because they do have a lot of protection and security, and so it will be hard to actually do it. But they could
stop a hypersonic missile.
Yeah, possibility. Like I said, I mean, I don't know, but there's a possibility. Mm-hmm. There is a possibility, but I don't think it'll be something where I think a lot of luck will be involved as well. But that opportunity is there. I mean, it only takes one, or even just getting close by, and so that opportunity is there. And then, listen, I predicted, though, I have to agree with you, a year or so ago, if we attacked Iran, that probably one of our carriers will go down. And you got to understand, that's over 3,000 people or more. That could be, lost in one lucky shot with a ballistic missile. And you've seen the damage. And let me just mention something else that you're spot on about, too. When I said the ballistic missiles are accurate. One of the things that Israel does as well, we really don't know how much damage has been done. A lot of that footage is being sneaked out. The Israelis are trying to control the battle assessment, damage assessments. They're trying to control the media. I personally think, once again, it's an assumption, that there's been more damage than what's been reported. Because as I stated, those missiles are very accurate, and you articulated it earlier of some of the things that are being done right now. And so this is going to be interesting. And I'm very worried. And like I said, I feel that I have failed because of the fact this is one of the things I was trying to prevent. And all I can tell your audience and others is that this is one time listen. I keep jumping up. This is the one time, and I got to tell your audience, listen, I'm not a fan, but Tucker Carlson is spot on.
Oh, he cooked a turkey, didn't he?
Oh,
he cooked a turkey, didn't he?
Oh, Lord. Did he tear Cruz up? Oh, my goodness. I was rooting him on. Yeah. But this guy is spot on. And I hate to tell you this, but Marjorie Taylor Greene is spot on. And I tell you, I don't mind agreeing with somebody no matter whatever else we think about. This is more important than domestic policy. This is international policy that not only can impact us, but it can impact the world. And one of the things your audience must understand too, and I've been studying this for decades, when I was in the Pentagon and when I was writing my book, I feel confident that Iran, if we push them too hard, they have terrorist cells here in the United States, not only international, but listen to me good, here in the United States as well, that can be let loose. And so we must be concerned about this, and we must fight back. I mean, I'm talking about us, the American citizens. This is one time, if we do, going back to what you said, what is the United States going to do? Do you think we're going to get involved, which we both feel they're already involved, but if they get involved more, we need to hit the streets. I'm telling you, we need to hit the streets. We need to be calling all Congress individuals and telling them we are against this war. And it is one time this war, I think, as we're seeing already, could bring Republicans and Democrats together because of the fact, in most cases, none of us want this war. As I've said before, and I'll say it again to your audience, this is my new cliche now. Fool us once, Iraq, WMD, shame on you, United States of America government. Fool us again, Israel, Iran, nuclear weapons, shame on us for being so silly and allowing this to happen and not fighting back.
Chief Fritz, two things. Chief Fritz, two things.
You got it.
From my understanding, we can't stop hypersonic missiles. The speed at which it takes to target those missiles.
Yeah.
The radar, the signature, from my understanding, even the plasma wake, those are not things that we can target per se, at least not yet. The technology is not necessarily there to do it. Could they put a lot of flak in the air and hopefully get it? Maybe.
Yeah.
But if 4 of those are stalking U.S. carrier groups, those carrier groups are going down. So I hope you get my point.
That's why I'm smiling. Yeah, you're all to that. Hey, yeah, the possibility is there. It is. But
and I can show you how you for getting hit.
Yeah, those ballistic missiles that you're talking about,
they're terrifying.
Yeah, and they're hard to detect as well.
Yeah.
I'm not saying immune from being detected, but they are hard to detect, and they are supersonic and fast. But like I said, we do have some systems, that could somewhat counter. But can they get lucky? Yes, that is a fact. They can get lucky, but
That's
it
fair.
may not be as easy as you're.
That's fair. No, that's fair. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm just saying.
But if that happens, all bets are off. I'm telling you.
They said screw it. And they put 10 of those things in the air.
Listen to what I just said in 2 minutes. Yeah, in my book, I talk about 4,000 deadly betrayal. 4,500 military men and women were killed in Iraq. If one of those carriers are hit, you're talking about 3,000 or more that could be killed at one time. So you're thinking about that. So it would be devastating if that happened. And listen, if we push Iran deeply into a corner, they may lose 4 or 5 or more of those ballistic missiles just so they can prove we will fight back. So, I'm not discounting what you're saying there, but it just won't be as easy as you might see that. It would be hard, but the odds of them getting lucky is pretty good too.
We have a hell of a military. So yes, I agree with you. I agree with you. I'm just saying in an existential war, all bets are off.
There you go. I agree.
Destroy their country. All bets are off. Like this is not.
And all bets are off if they assassinate the Ayatollah.
That too.
Yeah,
now there's something I want to back you up on that I think you have nailed, and that you're not the only one who said this. I've heard other military people say the same thing. So this is Larry Johnson talking about Trump. Listen to what he says here. I am. Look, we've had a John F. Kennedy, and John F. Kennedy was willing to buck the military trend, because they came to him and said something like, hey, well, we should wage war against the Soviet Union. And he's like, are you out of your mind? They're kind of like, you're trying to end the world. And they're telling him war plans like, well, they'll just get the East Coast, but we'll be able to destroy all of the Soviet Union. Effectively, we should lose millions of people with the notion of destroying the Soviet Union. And he's like, we need another option. These people are lunatics, etc. So the president is the person we elect to tell them to F off. I guess that's my point of view of it. If you are not competent enough or strong enough to do that job, then you shouldn't get that job. I agree with you that they may be managing and maneuvering the president, and that is what Larry Johnson is saying. for me, the buck stops with the president either way. But Larry Johnson makes this very precise point, the same point that you are making and that you've made over and over again that I cringed at.
We don't have good intelligence, and we certainly don't have ground penetrating radar that tells us how many missiles they've got stacked up in these tunnels and buried in these mountains. But I guarantee you that in addition to storing such missiles, they're also doing production of such missiles in these secure locations. So we don't have even a clue exactly how many they have. However, the Trump is being advised, I've learned within the last hour before coming on air with you, that Iran is it's run out of missiles, or they're almost run out. And as soon as they run out, they're completely vulnerable and exposed.
Effectively, the president is being lied to.
Absolutely.
That's what he's effectively saying. The president is being lied to.
This information, and look, you've already proven confirmation of what Iran have. Just today, the attacks on Israel, when they were supposed to be, they're slowly. Listen, there's two things going on, and what I agree with Larry on, and I've been saying this as well. You don't think production is still taking place in those tunnels, of missiles, and they're not smart enough to know, hey, we're going to do this underground. Plus, also, they're doing, like you said, they're being very reserved, and they're doing conservation too. They're conserving some of their weapons just in case America do jump in. And so I agree with Larry on that, is that there's no doubt in my mind there's production still taking place, and we don't know how many they have. Intel is based on assumptions, almost like a medical opinion. Intel folks give an opinion. I know you smile, but that's a fact. A lot of times, unless they see something directly or they have a spy, we're talking about technology and everything, a lot of intel is based on, it is our opinion. It is the intel community opinion or whatever. And so in a lot of cases, they don't know for a fact. So we don't know truly what Iran have and their capability. I think you saw some footage of Israeli leaders, fussing back and forth. Well, we underestimated their capabilities. Yeah, you don't know their capabilities. Likewise, in some cases, Russia underestimated Ukraine's ability. So in war, you just don't know, what you get yourself into. And
it's a gamble. I always say power. Look, I've said before, power is a shadow on the wall. Like if people will respond to, this is Game of Thrones. I didn't make it up. Basically this notion of people respond to what they think you have up until the point where you have to wager it. At some point you have to ante up if you're really going to push it. And it is a crapshoot. It is a gamble. I've seen grandmasters lose to people who are 1,300 rating. It's like, whoa, how did that guy lose to a guy who's only rated 1,300? It happens. It happens. The context of it. I mean, you can go back to the Finnish war with the Russians or with the Soviets, and they bled the Russians dry. Like over the course of a long period of time, the Soviet Union eventually won, but God knows they paid for it. I guess I'm pointing out, we are making a lot of assumptions of American power. And I think we're overestimating our capability and underestimating Iranian capability, just like when Ben Gvir got confronted and Ben Gvir was like, we didn't know they had those missiles.
Well, look, let me just say this. When you underestimate, when people are fighting for their lives and their cause in their countries, look at Afghanistan. I mean, the Taliban are still in charge, okay? Yep. You look at, during the Iraq war, it's going to be a cakewalk, as said by the neocons. And as I stated earlier, deadly betrayal. 4,500 military men and women lost their lives on a cakewalk.
Yep.
Iran is much more capable and a lot larger. And so, it's going to be something.
Go into your war planning hat for me.
Okay.
Because I am, there's a question that keeps coming up. This is a maelstrom. And this is not just about Iran. I mean, this has nothing to do with nuclear weapons for Iran. This has everything to do with this notion, at least from the Israeli standpoint, creating a greater Israel. From the U.S. standpoint, we want to put a knife in this idea of multipolarity. We want to remain a hegemon. And exactly. in the same way that Ukraine is our tip of the spear to do that with Russia, Israel is our tip of the spear to do that with Iran. If we can put a knife in Iran and take that off the chessboard or put it into our camp, we control energy in that region. We control the Caspian Sea. Hell, we even undercut this notion of BRICS and this notion of multipolarity that is trying to butt into existence before basically strangle the baby in the crib. And so if China and Russia knows that, which they do, they obviously do, right? China's been sending cargo ship after cargo ship immediately. It's like, we need to keep that, keep them in the fight. And even though Putin is like, yeah, we need to negotiate and everything else, I don't believe for a moment that it's going to stay there, especially if Iran gets wobbly. Do you think those countries get pulled into the maelstrom under this idea of their own security? I mean, for God's sake, Russia went into Ukraine specifically for its security, saying we are not going to allow NATO to be on our border. Full stop. We will end the world to prevent that from happening. Just like the U.S. said, we will not allow those missiles to be in Cuba. We will end the world in order to prevent that. It's existential from our point of view. Is Iran existential? Does it rise to that level if you're war planning this out and you're thinking to yourself, is this something that we can lose? Does it hurt us more to lose it than to keep it? If we lose it, is there a slow degradation in our capability over the course of time, and let's say in like 20 years, that we're going to be far worse off in a way that we're going to ultimately lose? So even though it doesn't look like it's a major piece now, it will be a major piece over time. And look, and I'm thinking this through chess logic. When I am modeling the world for a reason I'm making a move, I'm assuming something to be true, like as a flat fact, assuming it to be true. And I would wager that when those countries are looking at that stuff, they're doing something similar, of making assumptions of what would the world look like if this is not there. And do we need to get involved because this is that important? Does Iran rise to that level for Russia and China? I'm super curious. You've looked over the war plans. This was part of your job. I'm curious on your thoughts.
Yeah. Hey, let me just say something. I want to correct something. Because I'm not even though I'm not a war planner, but I oversaw and I was a caretaker of war plans where I had the opportunity to review. But we have expert war planners that think those things that you're talking about. But I can give you some assumptions. From reviewing a lot of war plans, itself, where I was a caretaker of war plans. Let me just say something you mentioned earlier that you were spot on again. WMD in Iraq. It was never about WMD. I saw that personally. We knew they didn't have WMD. Okay. We were talking about intel a few minutes ago, assumptions or opinions. There was some that was pushing, in particular neocons in the Pentagon, to Bush that they had WMD, but they didn't. Likewise, that war was not about WMD. It was about, as you said earlier, imperialistic philosophy of going in and controlling Iraq, the Middle East, starting with Iraq. Likewise, this war with Iran is not about nuclear weapons. Our intel itself has told us Iran is not close to a nuclear weapon or not planning to build a nuclear weapon. It is about taking advantage of opportunities to take over the Middle East. And that is what's going on there. It is not about Iran having nuclear weapons. We had a great deal in the JCPOA under President Obama. One of the things now I will tell you that Israel didn't like about the plan, because it really delayed if they were looking to do a bomb Iran by years. Okay, but one of the things in that JCPOA was that Israel and their sympathizers wanted Iran to get rid of their ballistic missile program.
Right.
And guess what? Now we see why they didn't get rid of that ballistic missile program, because that's their livelihood, to protect them. That's their last line of defense. Now, as a planner in regards to Russia and China, you hear this keyword that we use. I don't know necessarily about their security, but it's in their interests of both China and Russia to try to maybe eventually jump into this war. Because I can tell you, when it becomes international, the Strait of Hormuz, Iran can stop a lot of shipping. A lot of oil pass right by a piece of water that Iran controls.
Right.
And they can mine that, they can explode that, and then that's where it impacts Russia and China's interest. It does not impact their security, if you will, but it could impact their interest, primarily their economic interests. And so that is what they're probably looking at. I would think, and I'm really surprised that Russia has not come out more vocal in support of Iran. Why do I say that? because Iran has supported Russia in their Ukraine war.
Yes.
So I am very surprised. So it makes me wonder what's going on there. Go ahead.
To be fair, Putin said that Iran didn't want Russian help. He said that at the recent press conference, because that has been the question that people have been at. I will tell you, when this first started, I hit Mark up. I said, Mark, Russia's going to lose friends if it doesn't be more vocal about keeping those friends.
Yeah, I'm surprised.
But go, please finish your point. I'm sorry.
No, I just want to say, but when the push comes to shove, though, I think if it becomes where, let's say, for instance, if the Ayatollah is assassinated or whatever the case may be, and then all bets are off, I do think in some way, form, or fashion, Russia will support Iran. And that's when you got to get concerned about, okay, will this turn into, the World War III that everybody fears? Exactly. Then there's another piece in there we don't talk about a lot too. There's a Pakistan portion in there that we don't talk about a lot that we need to keep in mind too. And so, like I said, this is a frightening scene. And unfortunately, I must tell you that I am fearful not only of Trump, but the inexperience of the people around Trump. I am very fearful of that because of the fact we're going into territory that is, forget about Russia, Ukraine. People like to talk about biblical terms, biblical times. We're seeing it in that part of the world where it's happening right before our eyes, where this could really turn into a true catastrophe, Jamal.
Commander or Chief Fritz.
I'm going to correct that because we're going to get this right. And I know you love saying that, Chief. We're going to say Command Chief is what it's called. Command Chief.
Command
you
Chief.
Got it now.
Command Chief.
Command Chief.
Command Chief Fritz. You're telling me that you don't have infinite confidence in Pete Hegseth?
Well, no, what sarcasm there? What sarcasm there? You're talking about a guy. He's probably being hit with those generals and admirals on the Joint Chiefs of Staff with so much information. He's probably going to return back to drinking if he hasn't already. And that's sarcasm, but I really mean it. In some way, he's going to turn back because he's getting so much information that his mind. And by the way, he's supposed to take that information and brief a person that has a low attention span.
I know.
Think about that. We're in trouble right now.
It's terrifying. This is not John F. Kennedy. This is not JFK, right? This is not, the smartest guys in the room. This is.
Yeah, you talk about a guy that just said yesterday, I make decisions at the last second on a whim. He said, I got to see everything. Anything can change. But I make this is too important to make a decision on the whim. You got to think this out. You got to do critical thinking. You got to look at, and my hope is that what's left of our military leadership, when I'm talking about how we just disposed of so many of our Joint Chiefs of Staff members early on in the administration, I hope the ones that are there now, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, are being forceful with heads up and say, hey, look, this is not a time to play games, young man. This is a time you better listen to us. These are the options. Yeah, our job is to provide options to the president. But I hope they're saying, if we provide these options, we do certain things, we're putting our country and our world in a mess if we do certain things. So
he does have time in his makeup room where they can come and have a conversation with him. So I hope they are briefing him in his makeup room when he's doing that.
I'm so glad that in all this scary stuff that we can still have humor, because we're going to need some humor just to get us through this too.
Whistle past the graveyard, man. Might as well dance at the edge of oblivion, right?
Hey, Jamal, can I digress and make one comment? Of something during my previous appearance with you and with Larry Wilkerson. The subject came up in the LA riots about the Mexican flag and so forth. And somebody pointed out to me, they had reviewed on YouTube our presentation, and they said, well, listen, what about those Israeli flags that we're seeing? And I want to tell your audience, I agree with you 100%. I think that is worse and more of disgrace, because I personally experienced being on the Hill, walking the halls of the Hill, and seeing all these Israeli flags displayed outside of members of Congress offices. That is a disgrace. It was almost like they were showing loyalty to Israel. That was very disappointing. So those that commented about there's nothing worse than Israeli flags being flown in are posted outside of members of Congress offices or inside their office, that is truly a disgrace.
Dennis Fritz He is retired Command Chief Master Sergeant of the United States Air Force. He was, or former, at the very least, he's a fellow, I think I got that right, at the Eisenhower Media Network with the mission to promote peace and diplomacy over war. While on active duty, he served as a principal senior advisor to 4-star commanders at Pacific Air Force and Air Force Base Command. He also held additional duty as senior enlisted advisor to the commander of North America Aerospace Defense Command, or NORAD. He's author of the book Deadly Betrayal: The Truth About Why the United States Invaded Iraq. And I'm going to tell you this before I let you go. My next guest who's coming on, she says, "Oh my God, I got his book."
Well, listen, tell your group, please tell your audience, please get that book and go straight to the epilogue, because it predicts everything that is happening now. As I stated before, I was trying to prevent. If you go to the end before you even start the book, go to the epilogue and you're going to see it's being predicted that everything is happening now. And this was my goal, to try to stop it.
Command Chief, thank you for this, man. I really do appreciate it. You be safe, okay?
Thank you for the opportunity as always.